Greetings, everybody, to the Girded Loins podcast. My name is Alan, and I am joined here by the two amigos, Sam and Garrett. Gentlemen, how is your week going so far?
Well, it's going a lot better now that I'm here with you, Alan. It's been a lonely week, Natalia's left me for a couple weeks. She's visiting family in Brazil.
Good pause there.
Yeah. Pause for effect. She's visiting family in Brazil. She won't be back for another few weeks, so I'm got the castle to myself here, but it's been a little quiet.
For me, it's been a busy week, stressful week, but an exciting week. So, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's going to be a little interesting today on the podcast. For those watching, you'll have to immediately forgive us. We decided to kick it a little different with the lighting. I know Sam is over there looking like he's in the Peace Palace. Garrett, his camera's looking a little great, and then I'm over here looking like I'm reading a ransom letter in the dark here in some sort of scary movie. So we're kicking it a little different, but praise God. But this week we're going to be kicking it a little different. A topic that's kind of been on my mind pretty frequently here lately, something that's just come up just in several different conversations, is the concept of time. Where is time going? Why does it feel like life is moving 100 miles a minute? I've talked to people pretty close to me. It sounds like that person is definitely going really fast. He's in a hurry. Talk about time.
Very much so.
We are going to be talking about time this week, and it's pretty interesting to hear a lot of people's different opinions. I was talking to my mother, for example. She agrees with me. You look down, months go by, just kind of in your daily work. You look up, all of a sudden it's the new year, right? Just to say that as an example. But it definitely feels like life, especially as we've gotten older, is moving at a very, very fast rate. What do you gentlemen think about that?
Man, I just think I think that the more scheduled that you are, the more busy that you are, the faster time moves. It's like once you get into a rhythm, the time will just click away because you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And people are people of habit, creatures of habit. So, we get into these super tight, I guess, ways of living and pretty rigid living, I should say. And it just makes time go by faster because it's just repeat, repeat, repeat.
Yeah, I think something I've noticed having several different jobs over the years. It's always funny, the saying goes, time goes by quick when you're having a good time. And I think it's definitely the case. I've had jobs that I've loved. I've had jobs that I've hated. And, when you're in a miserable situation, time seems to crawl and it goes real slow. Thankful that that's not the case right now. As when you're in the familiarity of day to day and you're just in the same schedule every day, it's like you blink and it's gone. It's like when you're driving somewhere that you drive to every day, you get there and you're like, I don't even remember did I pass out? Like, I don't even remember driving this way. Like, I got in the car. I remember getting in the car, and now I'm here. I don't remember anything in between. Yeah. And so I think when you're in the monotony of day to day, there's just kind of a tendency for us to just kind of zone out and business as usual.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's 100% true. It's kind of fascinating to sit back and observe, when you're a kid, it seems like you have all the time in the world. It's literally day to day. One minute you're out playing with your friends, the next you're at the dinner table having conversation with your parents about how your day was, right? But as we get older and older and we take on more responsibility, it seems as though that speed of time just goes through the roof. And then all of a sudden, you look up and it's like, man, I'm 18 and I'm about to graduate college and I don't really know what I'm going to do, and that's kind of when you enter into a pressure cooker in a way where you got to, find everything out, where's life going? And I feel like it's kind of there that you kind of start to ask those questions of where am I going in my life? How much time do I have to get to the next level? So on and so forth. But I think with that, one thing sort of a question in a way, right? You always got to start with a thought provoking question. The big question that I want to present to you, gentlemen, is do we actually have more time than we think? I feel like this is a good question to start with, sort of sets the tone a little bit. And feel free to break that down however you might.
So there, people always say, "Oh, there's just not enough time in a day," and you got to think we have a God who created the heavens and the earth and created the sun and its cycles with and the moon and everything about our world he
Mhm.
created. So is there enough time in a day? God created it this way. We got, so many hours of sunlight, so many hours of darkness, and that's how it is. And so I don't think God makes mistakes. I think we do have plenty of time to do what we need to do and what he's called us to do. I just think a lot of times we don't spend it as we should.
That's really good. Yeah, I mean, I think I just agree with what Eric just said, straightforward. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a question that initially it's easy to answer to a degree. But I think one thing when I was chewing on like just the concept of time, how much time do we have? Something sort of came to my mind about the modern world of, why is it that we seem to have something that's so lengthy, kind of as Garrett was talking about? Why does it seem to be in such a short supply? So to immediately answer the question, I think I think we do have more time than we think, but sort of an observation of the modern world, if you will. I think a lot of this world moves at sort of like a breakneck speed really, really quickly for a few reasons. I think some of those reasons consist of, and I'm just going to list a few, hyperconnectivity, right? People are always wanting to connect. Here's one for you that'll kind of make you think digital stimulation. How much time we sort of spend in front of the phone, the media that we consume on a digital scale. And I would probably also say a culture that is obsessed with efficiency, sort of this desire to get everything done at this breakneck speed, like I said, right? Oh, I have 15 things to do. I found this to be true, from someone like my mother, right? Just having a conversation, she's a very efficient person and she kind of talks about all the things that she has to do uh, throughout the day. And I kind of was joking with her. I was like, I don't think I could do anything of what you do, like just always on the move. And so that sort of creates sort of a respect of those people who are efficient. I know I'm not that way, but everybody handles time differently.
Yeah. I remember there was this there I'm looking back at high school
Mm,
and I remember this argument being had between two people about, busyness of schedules. I think people almost brag about how busy they are. So, "Oh, I just don't have time for that. I just don't have time."
definitely.
And it's like I don't know, it's a weird thing. Like, yeah, I'm better than you because of how busy I am. And they're going back and forth like, "Oh, I do this, I do that." And I'm like, "Both of your lives sound miserable to me."
I mean, that just sounds like something
Like,
I'd use it as an excuse if I don't want to do something. Like, I got time. I just don't want to. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? Uh,
that's a great excuse.
yeah, I ain't got time. Fast forward to like 40 minutes, you have like a camera on me. I'm just like laying in bed watching like Netflix.
There is this line in Friends where it's I I liked it so much that I use it now. Uh, they asked Phoebe to do something. She's like, "Oh, I would. I just really don't want to." And it's like, man, I just love that honesty. Like, oh, I got this going. No, I just don't want to. You know?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess a follow-up question that I would have is when it comes to sort of the modern world and the issue of like time, schedule, whatever, do you think that this world sort of has like maybe a time management problem, or is it more an attention and distraction problem? The reason I ask something like this is because I mean, go back to what I said about digital stimulation, right? This world is like almost obsessed with the digital platform, the time we spend on our phones, right? So I guess I just would present that question to you both. Like, is it literally just a time management problem that we seem to be dealing with these days? Or is it just come down to what is what are we putting our attention towards? If that question makes sense.
Yeah. Listen, it was after our time that this started because we didn't grow up with like as little kids. We didn't grow up with touchscreen devices and whatnot.
Yeah.
But now you have, the term iPad kids or whatever.
Those little sweats.
Yeah. When you grow up and you're just being fed from that early of an age, just constant dopamine, yeah, you're gonna have some attention issues moving forward. Or if something is not like just feeding you that, you're just not gonna be able to focus. It's like, you know, that trend on social media where it'll be playing a video. Like there's a video that's the actual content going at the top, and at the bottom it's like gameplay of like Subway Surfers or something like that. And it takes up like half the screen, and it's literally for people who does not have the attention to watch a 1 minute video for what it's worth. They have to be distracted by some sort of gameplay or just stupid entertainment like that.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild. And it's easy to fall into as well. I mean, you know, the amount of times I self reflect when I'm just doom scrolling. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Man, I think time management can be important. I mean, it depends. Like, I feel like if you're busy and you have responsibilities to get done, like, of course, you gotta get those things done. And there's definitely times that you waste time. But, like, it depends if, like, what are you doing? Like, are you enjoying what you're doing? You know what I'm saying? Like what Garrett was saying. Like, if you're sitting there doom scrolling or you're, like, doing something that's just, like, rotting your brain out, it's probably, like, yeah, it's, like, bad times management. But I feel like at the same time, it's okay to, like, relax or, like, do something that's, like, a minimal task and just take things slow, even though it feels like a waste of time. You're like, oh, like, I almost have only have this much time in a day. You feel pressure to get like certain things done. But yeah, I mean, I think it's all just based off of like people to people.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
when used, and this is probably where you're going with this, Alan. But so I apologize if I'm jumping ahead.
No, you're good.
When you're trying to fit in your time with the Lord and looking at it that way, um, I don't think it's a valid excuse to say I don't have time for that.
Mm.
And I'm not saying I got it together. Like I am that this is for me as much as it is for anyone, because I definitely fall victim to this myself, where you don't prioritize it and you're over there doing all your other things while you're back from work, and maybe you got just a few minutes, like even a few minutes, and if you don't prioritize it, it's going to fall to the wayside and you're not going to get it done.
Yeah.
And so whenever I am sitting there, scrolling and just giving my little brain a little massage, I look over the clock and it's like, oh, I gotta get to bed. I don't have time.
Mhm.
And what did I do wrong? Well, I didn't prioritize it. And
Yeah.
time with the Lord has to be made priority.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good point. You know, I think to answer the initial question, I love what Sam said. I think in my opinion, it's sort of it's all a fine balance. Because I think the people who can be the worst is us to ourselves, right? This idea of time management can be a pretty demanding thing at times, right? But I also think there are times to rest. There are times to, throw up the timeout sign and catch your breath, basically. So I think to answer the question, that sort of eliminates the prospect of it being a time management problem. And so I think my answer would be it's more so an attention and distraction problem. And I would sort of jump on, what you had said, Garrett, of, every day's a choice, right? You make choices every day. And I love what you said about the example of, scrolling versus spending time with the Lord. And you can obviously look at that and be like, okay, what decision did I really make there? And so it's sort of fascinating to think about in this way. But one thing I want to segue into, and Garrett, I mean, you did it perfect, is sort of redefining the Christian definition of time, right? So it would just be so appropriate if we start this off by sharing some scripture. So I have 3 verses here that I just really think sort of bring it into perspective. So the first one is Psalms 31:15, a brief one at that. It says, "My times are in your hands," says the psalmist. James 4:14, here's another one. It says, "What is your life? For you are a mist that appears only for a little time and then vanishes." And then Psalm 90:12. This one's a little blunt. It says, "Teach us to number our days that we may gain A Heart of Wisdom, which I really do love that one. This idea that, you know, kind of the dark reality, right, is that our life could sort of end at any moment, right? And so I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, what are we doing with our time, right? As Christians, what are we focusing on? You lean on the example that Garrett, provided, right? Are we choosing to look at social media? Are we choosing to, take that time to dive in? And I think at the end of the day, it comes down to those simple decisions. So, what do you boys think? When I ask you the question of what does active holy stewardship look like in the daily life of a Christian? How should a Christian manage their time well, both in being social and being, taking that time with the Lord? What do you boys think? What is sort of maintaining a stewardship over your time as a Christian look like for you guys?
Man, well, I ain't
Sam?
really got it. I ain't really got it figured out yet, but
Yeah.
I mean, I would say just be mindful of what you're doing with your time, right? Be mindful of where your heart's at, right? Like as in a Christian perspective, it's easy to just kind of forget about the Lord after you've read a couple scriptures, early in the day and go on about your business. So I think, I mean, you could be doing your job and you can be like, communing with God. You can be, raking the yard, communing with God. You could be going to Walmart and buying yourself some milk and eggs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's all like
Hmm.
what are you focusing on? What are you thinking about? More so than like what you're actively doing all the time. Like that's important too. But it's also like a mindset. Like, it's just kind of living like conscience of like, I'm here for a reason, and that reason starts with knowing God, and that reason ends with me, you know, bringing people into the kingdom, essentially.
That's the word, is being conscious. That's really good. I think it's in First Thessalonians 5, 18, where it says, "Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and everything give thanks." Specifically highlighting on pray without ceasing. If we can get into the habit of keeping God on the forefront of our mind, right? And not just an afterthought, like, oh, I gotta check him off the list today of time spent, and just have him on the forefront where it's everything that I do in word or deed. I do it all for the name of Christ, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, that just has to be an intentionality to do so. I don't know. This image came to mind while you were talking, Alan. So this is a scene from a movie called The Legend of Bagger Vance. Matt Damon, it's Will Smith. It's a golf movie, right?
Hmm.
Anyways, he's up teeing off in this like tournament, and Will Smith's um, like the caddy, the coach, whatever. He's trying to teach him how to like see the field, right, and
Yeah.
blocking out all the distractions. And there's this beautiful scene where there's people all around and there's chatter and everything, and he just starts to like really focus, and it goes into the cinematic thing where all the people just disappear, and it like zooms in on the green and looking, and he's just seeing nature, and he's seeing the rolling hills, and he's seeing the birds and everything. All the people are gone. It's just him and the whole, right? It's him and the green. And I think that is such a beautiful scene and such a perfect representation of how we ought to be, where we can be in the midst of busyness and people and a schedule, but we have to look for the gold in the day where we can stop and just tune into what God is saying and what God is speaking to us. I think that's really what's important, is that we just need to find the gold in every day and in every situation.
Yeah. That's good, man. I like that. I like that a lot. It's funny because like really kind of basically what you just said reminds me of a quote that I found. And basically what this quote is about is just staying in the present, right? I think as Christians, it's such a you could provide such like a deep and wide answer of what are some essentials, right, that you need to remember as a Christian when you manage your time, when you do all these things. But this quote, basically what it's about like staying in the moment, right? Inhabiting the present, right? Because I think it's super easy for us as believers to often forget to be content in every circumstance, right, that you're in, right? How easily our eyes, right, as humans, stray, is this really where God wants me, so on and so forth. So I have a quote by C.S. Lewis, our boy. So this is a quote from the Screw Tape Letters. And tell me what you boys think of this. It's a pretty interesting quote. It says, quote, "The present, as in the right now, is the only point where time touches eternity. If we are constantly worrying about the future or mourning the past, we aren't fully present where God is meeting us."
Hmm.
I thought that was like a pretty interesting quote because it does say that, like, one thing that this quote touches on is like, hey, like the present is important too. I think us as humans are just so obsessed with the future. What is, when am I going to get that house? When am I going to, get that raise, so on and so forth. I mean, the list is never ending, right? But it's like staying in the present is such a key thing to really see what God is doing for us in this time and season. But what do you boys think of that quote?
Man, God's presence is in the present. I gotta say. I gotta say.
Enough said. Yeah, it's don't despise the mundane moments, right? You don't want to miss what God's doing. And I mean, you said it. We're so preoccupied with what's in the future, or we're so just riddled with regret about the past, and we
Mm.
don't focus on doing what we have to in the present. We're just so preoccupied with what's on either side of it. It's like, no, like God is in this moment just as much as in the moments after this and behind. Like you have to really focus on what's now. Almost sounding like John Lennon. We all just live for today. No, obviously we live with eternity in mind as Christians, right? But I'll just say it with like this, so I don't dig myself into a pit. You don't want to be so preoccupied with the future or so riddled with regret about the past that you miss what God's doing today. Done.
Yeah, yeah. No, certainly. That's very good.
It's a
You
lot of
know,
words. That's a lot of words to just say
I
the
know,
same thing I did.
I know, dude. I talk myself into a corner sometimes. It's like Michael Scott. He goes, sometimes I'll start a sentence and I don't know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
yeah, it's like a verbal avalanche
I
there by
know.
Garrett. Well done, well done. Yeah, no, I think one question that I want to ask you boys, and I think this will kind of turn the page on the um on the topic is that, us as Christians, right, we're big into ministry, we're big into, connection, right? Uh, I think it's safe to say that all three of us really have a heart for people to come to the reality of who Jesus is. If it were not so, right, why would we not do this podcast? But I think with that in mind, like here's a question for you. How should I word this? Here it is. How much time? Here it is. How much time do we actually spend in our day to day sharing the gospel of Jesus? So, I mean, that's a pretty blunt question, but what does that look like for you in, say, your week? I won't say day to day, right? Because I feel like that's a pretty like extreme demand to a degree. But like, what does it look like just throughout your week? Like, do you take one day? Do you maybe take 2 days to be like, hey man, just letting you know I'm praying for you. Hey, how's life, right? And obviously you would insert Christ in that moment, right? But what does that look like for you guys in your
What does it look like
week?
for you in your week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to answer. I think for me, my job, it doesn't really allow for me to do that. Just because, there are times where I'm genuinely by myself. But one thing that I've just been truly blessed by is the opportunity at Lion's Heart Ministry to go out with the evangelical class and just be able to share the gospel straight up, and to even come together and talk about, sharing the gospel. And I've definitely, you know, gotten a lot out of that class that we've been doing lately. And I think it really inspires me to honestly, anytime I'm in a public place, just, take a risk for Christ, and go up to the lady in the grocery store, or the young man in the grocery store, and just be like, hey, let me tell you about a man named Jesus. And so I've really been stretched, to be quite honest with you, in that area. And I've enjoyed it, on the weeks, and the day in the week when we do go out. So that'd probably be my initial answer. But obviously, honestly, chat, if I could be super real with you, I could definitely do it a whole lot more.
Tim?
See, I think for me, um, lately I haven't really been anywhere but work and home. Just 'cause I've been working a lot and home, and like I think the only time that I'm ever out is grocery store, right? And dude, I'm a fast shopper. I'm like breaking records, dude. I get in and out in like 15 minutes. So, but I would say at work, I mean, it just looks like me just being myself. Like that's it, just living how I live, right? Like everybody there knows what I'm about. Dude, slowly but surely, like I'll have people come up one by one and ask me questions, and I'll just lay out like truth. It doesn't feel like a pressure thing at work at all. Like I'm just like the crazy Christian dude. So it's just kind of it's just letting your life flow out from you.
Uh,
So
okay, and if not, I'll cut the question, but is it okay if we uh, give a report about the guy that got saved at your job?
oh yeah. So yeah.
Hallelujah.
Essentially, dude at my job, he's struggling with like drugs and alcohol and stuff. And, he had a come to Jesus moment, a little scary moment with some drugs. Like a week or two prior to that, I just like was having it just randomly came up in a day of work. I like preached the whole gospel to him for like the third time probably since we've been working together for a while, like 2 years, 2.5 years. And then I told him like, hey, dude, like if you're ever like in any kind of trouble when it comes to drugs or like anything like that, just ask Jesus to reveal himself to you. And he did. And like he got encountered by the Lord and he came into work. I was like, dude, I gave my life to the Lord. I was pumped. I was
It's
pumped.
amazing.
So, and I did like it. I never like pushed anything on him ever. I never went up to him like, hey, you need to, do this or you need to do that. Or I'm just working with a dude, just living my life. It's like it just comes from a place of natural, like from my heart, working hard, doing things right, being honest, and be ready to answer anyone's questions about
And it
Jesus
was
whenever I
it's
get the
cool because
chance.
I worked there for a little bit with you, and just I know that it was a slow burn, especially with him, and with pretty much everyone, and then in the kitchen or in your vicinity, you've given it to them, and you sowed the seeds, and finally, it you got to see some reward out of that. So it's a really cool deal.
hmm Yeah, the Lord's so
Hallelujah.
cool. Lord's so cool. And it's like so
Yeah.
random. Like he told me at first, I was like, huh? Really? I was like,
Huh?
hey, yeah, let's go. So yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, because I was just showing up to it was just another day of work. And
Yeah.
it was like, wow, like someone's soul is like now written in the book of life. Like this is awesome. So
Yeah.
Lord does stuff sometimes in secret and sometimes the stuff is out in the open and it's exciting either way.
Amen. Yeah, no, man, I love that. I remember when you texted the chat about that. I was pretty happy about that. It's just awesome. I I think really, Sam. I mean, honestly, it's inspiring. You know, I think us as believers today really need to just throw this idea in the trash of like inconvenient ministry. I mean, just to put it quite bluntly, like I mean, me chief of most, definitely need to get better about like even just taking 5 minutes to just go the extra mile and share Jesus, is obviously a huge thing, you know, and there's no telling what'll come out of it. Some of it's seen, right? As Sam said, some of it's unseen, but the Lord has a purpose for all things and nothing will withhold that purpose from him, which is just miraculous. The whole 9 yards. It's so great. But one thing I want to transition into, and something that I think it's important to clarify, is I'm going to ask you something and totally answer this how you will. I know for a little bit of us, it'll probably include maybe a before Christ era or a before Christ scenario, or maybe even while you were walking with Christ scenario. So the famous saying is true: hindsight is 2020. Uh, I know a lot of people to my life have said that to me. It could never be a more true statement. But my question for you both is, if you could go back and do one specific event differently in your lifetime, how would you have handled that? Maybe this is a season where, hey, I wasn't really walking with the Lord. Maybe it's a season where, you never knew the Lord at the time, or you were maybe struggling with, accepting the Lord. I mean, it could be anything.
Well, I for me, I just feel like I wouldn't change a thing because everything, all the mistakes I made, all the stupid stuff I did. I mean, I got arrested in my freshman year in high school, dude. Like, it's craziness, right? And I look back, I'm like, man, I wish I didn't like, accept those drugs from that one kid in freshman year. But then I
Yeah,
realized like those are all things that just led me to where I'm at now, right? So
yeah,
like I regret nothing, wouldn't change a thing, honestly.
yeah. Yeah, I think one thing that I think we all need to remember is, it's like we all fall short of the glory every day. I mean, we do, and I think, it's okay to look back and be like, man, really wish I could have done that differently. One example that comes to mind for me is like, my time in Washington. I definitely feel like I could have used that a little better. And obviously I'm not going to sit here and talk about all that, right? But I think the one thing that I could have done differently in my time in Washington is, realize that it's okay that people are different. It's okay to be discouraged with the times. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to, feel a little bit of pressure in your life. And I think one of the mistakes that I made up there was, I mean, just to be quite blunt, was to sort of stiff arm the Lord and be like, these outside trials and tribulations are getting to be annoying, Lord. What are you doing with me in this season? And, I remember there was a moment really, to be quite honest, where I was like, forget this. Like I'll handle it on my own. And I think it was, to be quite honest, I think it was in that moment that the Lord was, kind of just like, okay, we'll see. And you could just kind of immediately notice that things started to snowball, right? It kind of turned into the big snowball effect, and things sort of just kind of went south. And so, yeah, I mean, I think to answer the question outright, like, just I think I would probably want to do that differently. Learn that it's okay to be in the pressure cooker, as long as you don't turn away or turn your face from the Lord and all that stuff. So that's probably how I would answer the question.
Mm,
I
that's
I
good.
think for
Yeah.
me, I could probably lead you to numerous times in my in the past between, this last week to,
Hmm.
however many years ago.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, I've noticed, especially within the last year, I'm one who likes to be in control of things. Stupid example, I get into a car. If I'm not driving, I am probably a little bit anxious. So there's comfortability for me in the idea that I'm in control of things. And so when I'm in
Hmm.
situations that I can't control, my first instinct is, I got to fix this. And it's kind of like what you were saying when you're in Washington, I'll do it myself. I mean, that's my instinct is I got to fix it. I'll do it myself. And we know that the Lord is our protector and that he is our strength when we are weak. But when it comes into practice, I feel like for me, it's like I don't. It's like it's just an idea sometimes, and not a
Hmm.
reality. And so I can think of plenty of times where I'm just like, you know what, screw it, I got it,
Yeah.
and I don't. Maybe I even miss an opportunity to let the Lord do His thing because I've got my hands clenched so tightly on my little idea of control.
Yeah. 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 No, for sure. And, I appreciate you sharing that. It really at the end of the day, like and I would hope, those who listen, like realize this, like we're not like perfect. Like I am not gonna sit here and just be like, yeah, hashtag maturity. Look, I mean, we all fall short of the glory, every single day. I think it's totally human to just be like, what was I thinking back when I was in that season of just, making those dumb decisions. But I think, to throw in what Sam had said, ultimately it says in the word like he's the author of our steps. Nothing catches him off surprise. Catches him by surprise, excuse me. And so I like what Sam said of like, yeah, man, hey, like I did some pretty curious things back then, but at the end of the day, like they got me to where I am now, you know, and like a favorite song I'm listening to right now is called Highlands by Hillsong. And my favorite lyric in that song is basically like you're no less faithful even when the night leads me astray. And I don't know, like we can obviously all look back and be like, man, wish I could have done better. But again, I think it's good to come back to the present, right? As we talked about earlier, and being in that present moment with where the Lord has you, what he's working on, and the whole nine yards. So I think that's kind of where I'm at right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that made sense. I know it was like a lot of words there.
Yeah, I think we can
But
just get so if we lean too much into the past, I feel like it's a real strategy of the devil to use past
mhm,
regret to paralyze us in the present or to keep us bound
Mhm.
because we're so oh,
Well, it's
good.
funny. It's funny because, like, in our minds, we could blow things up, right? Let's say last week I overate, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm a glutton, and this and that, and this and that, right? And then but that it was wrong, and that you don't, you're like, that's not the way to live, right? And then, but you keep thinking about it, and the enemies shoot stuff at you, and you're looking at it, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I gotta dude, if you ask the Lord would be like, "Huh? What do you mean?" Like, "I don't know what you're talking about." Like, he doesn't keep track of your past. Like, the Lord's looking at you now, right
amen.
now, today. Today is the day of salvation. It wasn't yesterday, right?
Amen.
So, you can't live your life based off of the past, whether it was terrible, whether it was good. A lot of people live off of their past if it was good. Like, "Oh, I was successful then, why do I need to try now?"
Yeah, good
So, I
word.
mean, it goes both ways.
Yeah, that is a good word. So I think one thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit next is, so far, obviously, we've talked about, how do we steward our time as Christians? We talked about the issues of, how fast, not the issue, but the phenomenon of, how it seems that life is moving so fast lately. But I think the next thing I want to discuss is how do we hit the brakes, right? How do we slow down um, in some of these areas? So with the culture, one of the things I had mentioned earlier is that, society values this idea of speed, right? I think in today's world, it's all about speed, production, how much am I doing in one day, right? Uh, so on and so forth. As Christians, right, we can, lean on, in this case, one of the fruits of the Spirit, right? Patience. Um, you know, in whatever season we might be in. I think the good thing about having patience, right, is this sort of slows down the daily happenings of life, right? Having the patience to be like, okay, Lord, do you want me to jump in this now? Do you want me to, wait on the Lord? So many things that we can think about to sort of pump the brakes. But I guess how would you boys initially answer this? How can we pump the brakes in a world like today where it's just so much about what we're putting out
That
and so much
verse
about
that
what we're
says, "Be
doing?
still and know that I am God." Dude, we've talked about this countless times. It's about being intentional, and it's
Mhm.
about it's about being intentional to slow down, to give yourself some space, give yourself some time. Talks about in the Word, into going into the closet and separating yourself. We used to have me and Sam had a pastor at LC while we were there, and they had this little thing they did throughout the week, once a week, where someone leadership in a leadership capacity would show what their way of spending time with the Lord was like. And
Mhm.
he would always do this for the couple years we were there. He'd get up there and he would be like, "We're just going to sit in silence for like however long it was. Like, it was like 10 minutes or something like that. Complete silence. It was a little interesting. There was a lot of people that really struggled with it. I was kind of in between where it was like, cool to be silent for a little bit. Maybe, but there really is something to that where you drown out all the voices that are fighting and competing for your attention and you tune into the one voice that really only matters, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's the key. Just have to every voice that feels like it has a right for your attention, you just have to say no. There's one that truly deserves my attention. So whatever that looks like for you, if it's being completely silent and just listening, if it's, putting on a little soaking music and, lying on the floor like Alan probably does, or just reading your Bible,
Yes.
or being, pacing in prayer, whatever it looks like. Everyone's different, and just tune in.
Or you could just do interpretive dances like Garrett.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he be up there
Um,
dancing.
yeah, for me, I'm gonna be super practical here. It's all about the little things, man. You want to slow down time, it's the little details of life. I'll take you through a day to day for me. Like if I have a good day, I know when I'm having a good day. It's whenever I really pay attention to the little things. So, for instance, I wake up in the morning, right? First wake up, wow, I feel well rested. Thank you, Jesus. Like, this is amazing. I feel so good. Next thing, I walk outside to my car, whether I'm going to church, going to work, going wherever. And it feels like you could just feel like that nice, fresh air, if it's good weather here in Texas. You're like, man, this is so nice. You see the sunrise, um, you see like a little frog jumping off the side of the house, like just any little thing ever. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm driving to work and this motorcycle flies by me. I'm like, oh, that was cool. Like literally any little detail. Because what it does is it makes your day stand out, right? And sometimes it can let you, talk to the Lord about something too. So I would say like you want to pump the brakes, start small, start with the little things in life. Enjoy those little
Yeah.
moments. And I mean, you could have this huge problem in your life, like you're in debt, or, you don't know if you're going to pay rent, or you have family issues or all this stuff. If you focus on the little things day by day and like you have a positive outlook on that, right? And especially if you're giving thanks to the Lord for like little things like that, you're going to have joy. Like you're going to have a good
Yeah,
time. I promise
keeping
you.
Yeah.
a atmosphere of gratitude around you really invites the presence of God into your life. I mean, if you're constantly looking at the mountains in your life and all the things that are going wrong, that's all you're gonna see, right?
Yeah. Amen.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, and boys, like those are great answers. I think it really addresses the practical strategies, right? I find a lot of people in today's world are like, let's do something practical, and I think these practical strategies really go a long way. I know in episodes prior, right, and as you boys just discussed, there is a beauty, right, to setting aside that time, taking silence. Right, whether it be watching the frogs jump, as Sam said, just sitting there in complete silence, as Garrett had said, hey, go out in the backyard, watch the sunset, all practical things. If you're a big consumer of media, right, digital fasting, taking a break from social media. I know Garrett has talked about the beauty of that in the past. And one last thing that I think it's important, and I kind of wrote it down in a funny way here, but the power of saying no. It was kind of funny how Garrett worded it in a way, talking about the quote from Friends, right? Where it's like, oh, I just don't want to do it. I think sometimes saying no is a little important. Obviously, you're going to be respectful, right? You're not going to drop the hammer on somebody and be like, no, boy, or anything like that. But uh, I think saying no is not necessarily a bad thing. Because I mean, sometimes when you say yes to an already packed, overcommitted schedule, you'll find that, hey, like I am missing out on, spending time with the Lord. Just those little things, in Garrett's case, time with the wife, the little things that are just so, so crucial and important. So, yeah, I mean, you all said it very well there. One thing I want to wrap up with, and I think this is a great humorous way to end the podcast. Want to propose a question, and this doesn't necessarily have to be within a Christian or biblical era. It can literally be anything you want. I know the inner child in me is having like so many potential answers to this question. But the question is if you could go back in time to any period in history of the earth, what would you choose and why? Again, this does not have to be necessarily biblical. It can literally be anything you want.
I would be one of Jesus's disciples. Just kidding. No, I think for me it would have to be, and I mean it's bad because like these people were bad, right? But it had to be either the Vikings or it had to be pirates. Because listen, it's
I
like
love that.
the just like the thought of adventure and going like all around the world on a boat and like just visiting like different places. Now, obviously, like there's some pretty bad pirates, pretty bad Vikings that did some pretty bad things, right? But like, what if there was a group of like good, good travelers back then in that era? Like, I'm talking like in between, like say like 1100 and like the 1700s or whatever. Like just being a
Yeah.
part of a group of people that are like on a ship, just going all throughout the world, just visiting everything. Like imagine that. Like that's like your life. Like that's got to be the most like fulfilling thing. As long as you're not like pillaging and stuff, obviously. But yeah.
I love
I
that.
just,
That's a
I
good
just, I
answer.
just, I just found it so cool. Like it's just like your life is like a literal
And
adventure.
there were
Yeah.
several that
Yeah.
came to mind. Um, height of the Roman Empire, I think, would be
It's a good one.
incredible to be around, be a part of that. Seeing Babylon, it at its height. I mean, I'm very interested. I'd love to see just what they built. Like, how
Yeah.
advanced was this civilization? Something else. What else came to mind? I was thinking of post World War II America, like right after the war ended, going into like the
Hmm.
golden age. I feel like would be pretty cool. The Wild West in America. There's several. There's several that kind of come to mind. But I think it's important too. You obviously, if you're going to visit these time periods, and Napoleon Dynamite's time machine, you definitely want to make sure that you go to a place where you have somewhat of a quality of life. You don't want to obviously go to like the Dark Ages, you know, during the go to
Yeah.
the breakout of the bubonic plague. You want to make sure you're doing okay when you visit.
And yeah, and the important thing that Kip almost forgot
The
in
crystals.
Napoleon Dynamite's time machine, you can't forget the crystals. So bring the crystals with you. Um, yeah, I love this question. It's funny. I was actually thinking about this like a week ago, and it definitely inspired me asking the question. Uh, Ultimately, as you both know, I'm such a sucker for history. Like I love history. I loved Sam's answer. The idea of the Vikings. In the age of exploration. For me, it's a little bit of a tie. Like I love 20th century. That's when you get into World War One, two, into the Cold War. But I think for me, it comes between two. Probably the first one is a little similar to Sam's. The age of exploration. I would have loved to have been like a fly on the wall when the Spanish like saw some of the wonders in in areas like Mexico and South America. Like I would have loved to have like seen those Aztec temples like in all of their glory, and see what it I'm going to be a nerd here, but like be a fly on the wall when uh the Spaniards encountered like Montezuma the second, the leader of the Aztecs. Such a nerd answer, but it's like it's so cool because like back during that time, like the world was just such an unknown. you know Another answer, I would love to be in the 1800s, stand in the Great Plains, where, the Indians were like the Native Americans were like at the top of their glory, just anything in that time frame, 1836, the Wild West, right, would have been super cool to me. The westward expansion, right, manifest destiny, all that cool stuff. So, yeah,
Just can't
that'd
forget them
probably be my
crystals.
answer. Yeah, can't forget the crystals. but but yeah, I love the prospect of time, time travel, just all that stuff, Napoleon Dynamite. I mean, he was on it. Just the idea of, what did the world look like before? What does the future look like? All of these are questions that, we as people often chew on and ask. And, what if I would have done that differently? And so I think it's good to, obviously come together, kind of discuss, you know, having an understanding of where you've been, but also where you're going, and what the Lord is going to do in the future, and having something to look forward to, having heaven in mind, as Garrett had mentioned earlier. So all interesting things, boys. I
Alan,
really
what are
love
you looking
talking about
forward
all
to?
this. Yeah. I think for me, just looking forward to these next 2 years, obviously, working on the teacher certification, kind of entering the middle ground, and going to be almost done with that here before you know it. And just seeing where
Amazing.
life goes, man.
Amazing.
What about y'all?
I'm just looking forward to when my wife gets back. That's all I've got in mind right
Yeah,
now.
I got you.
Yeah, for me, probably just go on a trip to Florida. I fly out kind of towards the end of June, going to go visit some family.
I'm
So
only too
kind of looking
far
forward to
ahead
that.
because I think this year is first like full year of being married with Natalia, and I think it's gonna be a really good year. So I'm just looking forward to all the adventures.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, boys. Well, I don't really have anything else. Again, if you've listened to this episode, thank you so much for listening. If you have maybe a profound question that you just in need of a dire answer, right? Feel free to email us at girdedloinspodcast@gmail.com. Again, that is girdedloinspodcast@gmail.com. Always be on the lookout for those Instagram reels that we release, posting on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. But if you are listening so far, thank you for your support. We appreciate you, the people. It's because of you that we take great joy in being able to share Jesus, share some of our thoughts, and looking forward to the rest of the journey. So,
Good
boys,
stuff.
that's all I got.